Okay, I think I'm set up. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jiri Spot, Jiri Spot, and I came here from Brno, STRE office, to tell you something about testing React.js applications in Enzyme and Ava. Yeah, let me just quickly refresh this because this whole presentation is actually built in React, and and I was on the public address, which is this one. And obviously, if I changed slides here in my other window, it wouldn't work. But yeah, so I just joined the STRE, and I've been working with React like several months at least before in production at my previous jobs as full stack developer. And yeah, I think the combo, the Ava and Enzyme, is really good for testing your apps. And let's dive in why I think that. Like for testing web apps, it's really complicated to do that because like it's not, it's like DOM with all its APIs and all its methods, and if you ever done some like functional or end-to-end testing, it's really time heavy. You always need to like wait several minutes for tests to complete, and a lot of times there are flaky tests, and it's just big pain. And what's worse, that every company uses the terms like a little bit, differently. So what's functional test in one company could be end-to-end test in another. And like testing is, it's really complex stuff. And like if you open up this link, for example, yeah, you will find like lots and lots of stuff all to do with testing, and it's really, and it doesn't have to be if you use the proper frameworks like React, obviously. So how do we test React.js? It's really I think it's better to ask what is a React.js, because answer lies right there, because every React application that I've seen is just a function of state. It's like hundreds and maybe thousands in some cases functions underneath that are composed in one. But from the top level, you could say it's like one black box function that is, no, it's not magic. It's actually your React components that you wrote and you coded over hours and hours, and they try to create the view for your app, right? And that's really the beauty of testing React, because if you're testing just a function, it's really simple. You just call it and see the output, and if it's what you expect, the test passes. And like usually there's no state that you need to like juggle around in tests, and there's a little mocking that you need to do. So that's really a big upside compared to frameworks like other frameworks which are really just a collection of templates and functions which are like arbitrarily executed, compiled in like Angular, Ember. I didn't want to point fingers, but okay. So, so like the enzyme has, which is from Airbnb, and it's open source, obviously. It provides us like with free APIs that's shallow, full DOM, and static. And we're gonna dive into that in a minute. But before that, we just, we need to introduce Ava, I think, because, you wouldn't want to run your test in like raw node and catch errors there. That would be silly. So yeah, you need a test runner. Usually people go with Mocha and Jest for React. Those are fine options, but they are slower. For example, like this company, PageRes, I don't know it, but it brought its unit tests from 31 seconds to 11 seconds, which like that's huge. For me, that means I can do like double the work a day because I have at least 2 times faster feedback loop. And if you're doing proper TDD, you've got your terminal running the tests and in your other window, and you usually like wait for the tests to pass until before you move on to something else, to some other feature. So yeah, that's like fast test. That's really great for development speed. And obviously it's power asserts, which is quite complex library. Let me show you if I can click there. Yeah. They give you something like this, which, like, if you have some expression, JavaScript expression, it parses it and it knows, like, which objects or which values are you asserting on, and it will show you exactly what's there. So it's like a debugger, for a smart debugger for your test asserts. And yeah, that's really nice to see like what values are failing in your tests. I will switch back to the presentation. Yeah, so those are power asserts. But obviously, as Ava has Babel in itself, you write your test as ES6. So it uses Babel, and if you're writing React, you usually use Babel. So you have to inherit your Babel RC config, because if you don't, you'll run into problems with JSX because Ava doesn't have the Babel React preset by default. So yeah, that's just do that in your package.json, obviously, and everything's gonna be fine. Yeah. Before we dive into more code samples, just quick intro into Ava assertions, because unlike Mocha, Ava has its own assertions, which is pretty cool because, for example, a lot of people use Chai. I hope some of you probably use Chai, and compared to Chai, this is much smaller. You just have, this is basically like the whole API, I think. Yeah, we can't see some. Yeah, there's like not throw at the bottom that we don't see, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, so it's really just very simple, straightforward. And obviously, if something fails, you will see a nice assert. And so, yeah, let's see both together. Yeah, let me let's say we have these three components, well, very simple components, which are nested. We have like a hello component on the top and like two other nested in it. And yeah, there's also like a counter component, but yeah, which just displays a number. So how do we make sure that hello renders correctly? We obviously import Ava and we import with ES6 because Babel, right? And we use shadow and mount from Enzyme. And yeah, first is example of how just call it with your component as a first parameter. And then you get access to the whole shallow API, which I will have a link to in a couple of slides. And basically, yeah, shallow is really like for unit testing, for making sure that your one single component works. Because if you run it, actually have a code sample somewhere. No, this is the presentation. This is the one. Yeah. So if you run it and use the enzyme text, which returns the text, it will render your component, but any components which are nested will just render as as in JS6. So, and they don't even call the subcomponents aren't even called. That's great because if some nested component is broken, it won't break your tests of the higher order component. So that's great. But the enzyme API isn't exactly, let's say, it isn't perfect, because even if you have a shallow wrapper and you call HTML method on it, you would probably expect to get counter here and the subcomp here, but that's not the case. And yeah, so it can surprise you sometimes. I can show you in a console somewhere. Is this the console? No, this is the console. Right. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. A little too big for my taste. Let me make it smaller. I hope everyone can see this. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, so if we run shallow spec.
Could you maybe clear the screen first?
Yeah. What the command is clear. Clear? Right. Yeah. So if we run the spec, yeah, let me show you the code again. Yeah, we have a console logs in the subcomponents, so you would be able to see that before we this is outputted when we do the first assertion when we call text. So you see before that only the top level component was outputted, so it really works. And the next one, the HTML example, did call both of the subcomponents even though you're using a shallow wrapper. So yeah, just it's yeah, it's just a little bit weird that way. Yeah, and yeah, so from shallow, we can move to mount, which is like the full DOM rendering. But if I run this, it actually causes an error because the full DOM rendering requires JS DOM, so you have to import it from npm and create this like fake DOM, in memory, and just set it up so you can have a document on your global and window, and then you can just then you can use that full DOM rendering, which I have somewhere. State spec static. This one, yeah. So I do the import and everything here. I add. It's basically the same as the previous example. So, but yeah, here's the demonstrated difference. If you call the text, it will just output every node as it is in the tree, and really render it. So yeah, and the HTML method is really the same. Yeah, that's the here, and yeah, the output is the same. I'll just show you that it really works. Full DOM spec, yeah. So you don't have to just believe me. And yeah, so it passes. So yeah, and let me get back to the presentation. The last API that Enzyme offers is render, which will give you an API which is Cheerio. Cheerios is a library very similar to JS DOM, but it has most of the jQuery methods. So on the wrapper, you can then call the same things that you know from jQuery: find, or I don't know, like for each, or like whatever DOM manipulation methods that you know from jQuery. I have another example, hopefully. Yeah, static. Yeah, that's this static. And here you don't have to do your own DOM or stuff. Yeah, but in this case you can't change the state of the components and like the more granular stuff. It's really just the same thing again, but with less setup. This is probably useful for stuff like smoke tests. If you could probably call render on your app, like your index or a couple of pages, and just inspect that no errors are thrown. And yeah, so for like high-level testing, this could be good. So if I can, this would be I'll clear it again. And this would be static. Oh yeah, static spec. Yeah. So yeah, that's working fine. And the last thing we have is in the here. Working with state and events, and that's that's pretty straightforward. If you wouldn't use Enzyme, there are like React utils for this, but it's not. I mean, it's definitely doable, but Enzyme drops it and provides a little nicer API, I'd say, because all you have to do is on your wrapped component. It can be shallow or full DOM, doesn't matter. You can call the simulate click, And this is the counter component, which I can show you somewhere. Components, counter. Very, very complicated stuff like state with one value and one on-click handler, which just calls the console log and the set state, nothing fancy. So yeah, on the wrapper you just call simulate, and that should increase the value. So our text calls the renderer, and from the value in the store we get 1. Let me quickly call that state. Yeah. So you see that really this function was called from our test, and the value was properly set. If I go states back, you can also inspect the state of your components by just doing this. So you could like use tdeep equal to really make sure that the state is set right. And yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it's so easy testing with testing React that you know that there's really not much to say. You know, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have any more questions, let me know or find me downstairs. And yeah, we can talk it through. I thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good evening. Thanks.